Driven by greed more than need, Gavin had his eyes set on the profits from selling his elderly father's house. Without much remorse, he moved his father to a nursing home, eager to clear out the old property. As he returned to the house, ready to claim his long-awaited fortune, Gavin was met with an unexpected twist. His father, weak but with a knowing look in his eyes, uttered words that made Gavin's face turn ghostly pale. But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't. And hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. When Gavin's father's health began to decline, there was only one thing on Gavin's mind. As harsh as it may sound, Gavin was only thinking about his father's wealth. He was an only child, you see, and had always known that he would inherit a lot of money. He tried his best to be very sneaky about it, never telling his father exactly what was going on inside his mind. Gavin knew it would be a long wait until his father would pass away, but he figured he could live a comfortable life off of the proceeds of his father's big house. Gavin had asked nicely and tried to do it the kind way a few times, but his father kept refusing. After weeks of trying, Gavin couldn't take it anymore and made an arrangement to have his father move to a nursing home, going against his father's wishes. He knew his father would hate him for it, but that wouldn't last forever, right? His father had never expected such betrayal from his own son. The day a white van stopped in front of the house and two buff men in white coats rang the doorbell, he knew what his son had done behind his back. "I'm sorry, Dad. It's for your own good," Gavin had said with a sad face, but his father could see the happiness in his eyes. "You will regret this," his father angrily said as he was escorted to the van. Gavin took pictures of everything he thought to be valuable in the home, and after that, he called a real estate agent. "How fast can you be here?" Gavin asked the real estate agent as soon as she had agreed to sell his house. The real estate agent told Gavin she could be there later that same day, which was like music to his ears. When the real estate agent arrived at the house, Gavin could see how taken aback she was. "Are you the owner?" she asked Gavin upon arrival. "Yes," Gavin said confidently, "and I would like to receive the profit of the house in cash." The real estate agent was a little shocked by Gavin's upfront statement. All right, I'll see what I can do." When the real estate agent left, she told him it wouldn't take long for such a beautiful house to sell, which boosted his ego even more. Evening fell, and Gavin was enjoying his dinner. He was supposed to go to his father, but he canceled at the last minute. His father thought very differently about that. Gavin's cancellation at the last minute had been the final straw for his father. He had hoped they could have talked it out that evening, but now he was really pissed. Fueled by hurt and betrayal, Gavin's father set his plan into action. Gavin strode into his father's study, a room steeped in memories and wisdom. As he began sorting through the papers and books, his eyes were blind to the stories each item held. In Gavin's mind, they were just things to be appraised and sold. The emotional history embedded in these items meant nothing to him. It was the potential monetary value that drove his actions. Meanwhile, in the nursing home, Gavin's father was not as defeated as his son believed. With a steely resolve, he began reaching out to old friends, each call weaving a thread in a larger plan. As the father's story unfolded, his friends agreed to join his cause. They understood the depth of his pain and the betrayal he felt. Each friend brought different skills and resources to the table, forming a plan rich with ingenuity and justice. Together, they started to orchestrate a series of events that would teach Gavin a lesson he would never forget, setting the stage for his comeuppance. As days passed, Gavin's euphoria grew. Each step in the house sale, every appraisal of an item, fed into his blissful ignorance. He was blind to the whispers of disapproval, to the legal webs being woven in secret. In a dimly lit room, the father's friends convened, their faces etched with concern and determination. They spoke in hushed tones, each sharing disbelief over Gavin's betrayal. Strategies were mapped out with precision, as the group decided how best to teach Gavin a lesson he wouldn't forget. Legal avenues were explored, financial traps were laid, and psychological ploys were considered. Under the guise of a routine evening, the father orchestrated his escape with the precision of a seasoned strategist. He had carefully studied the nursing home's routines and staff shifts. Using a well-timed distraction, he slipped past the nurses, his every movement calculated. As he moved through the corridors, there was a surprising sprightliness in his steps. Once outside, he blended into the night, his silhouette barely distinguishable in the dim light. Juliet, the real estate agent, was finalizing paperwork at her office when the father, unannounced, appeared at her door. She greeted him with a mix of curiosity and wariness, unsure of his intentions. In a steady, measured tone, the father began to unravel the web of Gavin's deceit. He spoke of his son's betrayal, the heartache of being sent away, and Gavin's greed-fueled actions. Juliet listened, her initial shock giving way to a dawning understanding. The magnificent mansion she was selling was not just a property. It was the epicenter of a family tragedy. Juliet found herself in a moral quagmire. After much contemplation, Juliet's resolve crystallized. She decided to align with the father, moved by his story and the injustice he suffered. Together, Juliet and the father began to plot a course of action. They strategized ways to undermine Gavin's plans without crossing legal boundaries. The father's first move was a legal gambit. He leveraged his knowledge of the property and family affairs to introduce complex legal challenges to the sale of the mansion. Documents surfaced, questioning the legitimacy of Gavin's authority to sell. At the mansion, Gavin began to experience unexplained disruptions. Items would move, documents disappeared, and strange noises echoed at night. Initially dismissing these as coincidences, Gavin soon felt a growing unease. The mansion, once a symbol of his triumph, began to feel like a maze of uncertainties. These disruptions, subtle yet unnerving, were orchestrated to fray Gavin's nerves, a psychological underpinning of the father's plan. At social gatherings, business meetings, and casual encounters, Gavin found himself met with cold shoulders and disapproving glances. His once respected name was now tinged with the stain of greed and disloyalty. This shift in perception, carefully seeded by the father's allies, eroded Gavin's social standing, isolating him in a community he once commanded. Each day brought new setbacks for Gavin. Contracts fell through, buyers backed out, and his financial transactions faced inexplicable delays. Gavin was in the midst of examining some paperwork when he was jolted by the sight of his father standing in the doorway. The man he had sent away, now here in the flesh, was an unexpected specter in the grand hallway of the mansion. Gavin's heart skipped a beat. Words spilled out, charged with years of unspoken emotions. Accusations and defenses flew, each statement more heated than the last. The father's voice was heavy with hurt and disappointment, while Gavin's was tinged with defensiveness and surprise. This was more than a disagreement. It was a clash of fundamental values and broken trust. The father's words were a torrent of pain and disillusionment. As Gavin struggled to process the rift, his father delivered a staggering revelation. He spoke solemnly, revealing a long-kept secret about Gavin's heritage. The father revealed that Gavin was not his biological son. This revelation shattered Gavin's perception of his identity. He stood there, grappling with the reality that the blood ties he had always assumed were non-existent. Gavin, once the sole heir, now found himself excluded from the legacy he took for granted. As these revelations unfolded, they intersected with Gavin's peak of arrogance. He had stood in the mansion, proud and unyielding, moments before his father's arrival. Now, faced with the truth of his heritage and the loss of his inheritance, his hubris was confronted with a harsh reality. It was a moment where his greatest confidence collided with the most profound of truths, leaving him reeling in its wake. In the wake of his father's departure, Gavin's world came crashing down around him. The revelation about his heritage sent him spiraling into an identity crisis. His very sense of self, built on a foundation he believed to be unshakable, was now in ruins. In the quiet corners of the night, Gavin's mind replayed the events that led to this moment. He thought of the decisions he had made, the words he had spoken, and the opportunities he had missed to appreciate his father's love. As dawn broke, Gavin stood at a window, looking out at the world with new eyes. He understood now the true cost of his betrayal. Gavin took his first tentative steps towards redemption. He reached out to his father's friends, offering apologies and seeking guidance. He started to engage in acts of kindness and service, attempting to step out of the shadow of his past actions. Each gesture was a small stitch in the fabric of the relationship he hoped to mend, a quiet effort to rebuild the trust he had eroded. The story concludes with Gavin on a transformative journey. He began to understand that familial bonds are not solely defined by blood, but by actions, empathy, and unconditional love. As he walked the long road of redemption, he realized that true familial value lay in the relationships nurtured over time, in the sacrifices made for each other, and in the unwavering support that withstands the trials of life. Tell us what you think about this story, and share it with your friends. It might inspire them and brighten their day.